So again, welcome to the Staffing Agency Course Mastermind. This is Module 1, and during this module, we're going to be talking about building your foundation. So I'm Shamika, again, if we haven't met, and I'm going to be your instructor for this Mastermind course throughout, and we'll also have some other people presenting. And we are presenting this through the NOSA Group, which is a nurse-owned staffing agency. So I always like to start all of my presentations with a quote. And this particular quote is a quote that I've used a couple of different times because it always seems to apply. And it says, you don't build a business, you build the people, then the people build the business. I think in these times more than ever, we're realizing how important that is. As healthcare professionals, whether you're a nurse or working in nursing support or other areas of healthcare, we're really realizing the impact that healthcare workers are having in the industry, as well as the need that they have for us. There's so many rapid response opportunities happening throughout the United States over the last 6 months. So it's so important that in starting your business, you understand the importance of the people actually build your business. So for this particular module, our objective is to learn the basics of getting started with your healthcare staffing agency. So some of the topics we'll cover include the importance of a business plan or outline. We'll talk about how staffing agencies work, as well as what types of options you have available for financing and funding for your business. Get an understanding of what types of insurance you'll need for your agency. We'll talk about creating your organizational structure, as well as identifying roles and responsibilities, and touch a little bit on putting together some job descriptions. And then finally, we'll talk about identifying roles for building your agency, as well as how to make the transition from employee to employer. So what is a healthcare staffing agency? And essentially, this is my definition of it. You can definitely feel free to check out Google to get a more formal definition, but it's mostly providing supplemental, temporary, or permanent staffing for various types of healthcare facilities to meet their staffing shortages. And there's so many different types of facilities where you can actually provide healthcare staffing. That includes your hospitals, healthcare centers, long-term care centers, your LTAC hospitals, urgent care, assisted living, dialysis clinics, as well as your veterans homes. And there's a whole bunch of other settings where staffing services are provided. And then some of your clients can be private hospitals or long-term care LTAC hospitals. They can be state-run, federal, like your Veterans Administration or your Health and Human Services or your Indian Health Services. Those are all federal clients, as well as your local, maybe your local Department of Health, and then county and city can also be clients. And then the types of staffing. So one of the reasons I talk about what types of staffing is because some of those terms will be used interchangeably throughout the mastermind. So I wanted to kind of touch on them, as well as give you an idea of the different types of staffing that you can offer to your clients. So you can offer your traditional temporary, which is what a lot of us do. Some people do temporary to permanent positions, per diem or PRN positions, travel, and local contracts. So what most people are the most familiar with are your travel and local contracts. And for me, the main difference between a travel contract and a local contract is primarily kind of how that contract is set up. So there are definitely individuals who travel or clients who look for travelers who live locally. Some of those benefits include that travel contracts typically offer a per diem, and we'll touch a little bit on that as we go through the course, whereas your local contracts will usually just offer you a straight pay. So that's some of the differences between those two. So some of the types of positions that are staffed by healthcare staffing agencies include of course, your registered nurses, your licensed practical and vocational nurses, your certified nursing assistants, your licensed nursing assistants. So I put these on here just because these two roles that are coming up that I'm speaking on are specific to certain states. So in the state of Vermont, they don't use the title of certified nursing assistants. They actually call them licensed nursing assistants, or LNAs. As well, in Maryland, they do use a certified nursing assistant role, but they also use a geriatric nursing assistant role where that individual has taken on additional training and been titled as a geriatric nursing assistant to work in long-term care settings. You also have your certification or your certified medication assistants, as well as your certified medical assistants. And these are just a few of the roles. This doesn't encompass all of them. And then for some of your health positions, you'll have your physical therapist, your occupational therapist, your speech language pathologist, your physical and occupational therapist assistants, your pharmacists and pharmacy techs, phlebotomists, lab technicians, EKG, and ultrasound techs. And this is just some of the traditional ones. There are hundreds of other roles, as you guys already know, that are staffed, but these are some of the more popular, more frequently used roles for staffing. So for some of you guys who are new to the industry, I just wanted to share this fun fact. And maybe didn't have an idea, but I think I posted onto the group about how much do you think healthcare staffing agencies make, or how much revenue do you think that the industry actually generates. So healthcare staffing is a billion-dollar industry. And I think that might change this year with the whole COVID-19. It might even become more than a billion-dollar industry. And with that being said, I mention it as well because a lot of people question whether or not there's opportunity to actually run a profitable agency, and it's definitely there. One of the key things, and that's mostly what we're talking about today, is setting the right foundation. So kind of setting your plan in place to, if you desire, get to millionaire status or get to 6 or 7 figures for your agency, or you may just want to be an agency owner, or you might also want to just have a small staffing agency. But there's definitely opportunity to make money in the industry. So here are a few business basics. So this is something that I try to touch with people prior to them actually launching their agency. And I know we're early on, so that's not where we are at this time, but I want people to kind of be thinking about that as we get started. I know a few members here may have already started the process of, started the process of creating their business plan. And I encourage you, if you haven't, to actually start doing that now, so that you can definitely begin to implement all of the things that we discuss in the mastermind and be able to do it in real time, so that as any challenges or questions come about, we can talk through those things and fix them. So for anybody that just joined us, welcome. As well as, you can do me a great favor and go ahead and mute your phone. So if you're just joining us, I think we have one person just join us. Just please go ahead and mute your phone for me, please. So some things you want to think about prior to starting your business is creating a roadmap, a plan, a direction that you want to be heading in. And what I try to tell people is, if you're starting your agency, is there a niche market that you want to work within? I think during the webinar that many of you guys attended, Katie touched on the fact that there's a lot of people within the NOSA group that I'll talk about at the end who specifically work with labor and delivery. They may work specifically with cardiac or long-term care or any of the specialties, and that's kind of where their niche market is with regards to running their agency, or kind of standing apart. So those are some of the things you want to think about that kind of sets you apart. You want to also make sure that prior to launching, you completed some sort of roadmap and plan. I'll leave onto this particular module a sample outline, business outline that you guys can use, and that'll save you a lot of time. So just like with anything in healthcare, it can move really fast. Many individuals, including ourselves, have gotten started and it just moved really fast, and you kind of miss steps along the way. So this is a great time to kind of, at the beginning, get all those things in place, so that as you're growing in the right direction, as well as you're making sure that, you know, you have the right people and information in place to make the good decisions. And as I mentioned, we'll go more in depth there. So I'll be including a business outline for you guys to use if you haven't gotten a chance to do that. That'll kind of give you a little bit of information with regards to getting your business outlined and kind of how you want it structured. Some things to consider as well is what type of entity you want your agency to be. The most common are your LLC, which is a limited liability corporation, as well as some people incorporate their business as an S Corp or a partnership. So in doing your business plan, you'll kind of identify or determine if you want your agency to be an agency owner, where you, the agency owner, work the agency, or whether or not you want to bring in a partner, or you want to set it up as an S Corp. As well, the second part would include registering with the state. So for all businesses, you always have to register with the state to make sure that it's a viable business. And typically that process is fairly seamless. I'll touch at the end on a few states where there's additional requirements, but for the most part, it's something that a lot of states allow you to do online, or something that you can do and complete with a one-page application process. We'll touch a little bit on financing and funding, which is important as well at this stage. Getting your federal tax ID number. So that's your employee identification number, and you can go on to irs.gov, and that process is very simple. It may take you maybe 30 minutes to complete that process at the most. And I'll leave a link for that as well. And then to touch a little bit on the special requirements. So for the most part, majority of the states, not all of them, have very seamless requirements to get started. You need to have your business incorporated, what type of entity it is, and register with the state like you would do any other business. There are a few states that require that you register with the Department of Health. One of those states, and I'm not sure if we have anybody on the call, is Florida. So that process is where you have to register with ACHA, ACHA, addition to registering with the state, as well as there's some states where you have to register as a nurse registry. And California is one of those states. And then there are, I think it's just one or two states that require that you obtain commercial space. And in Louisiana, you do have to have a commercial space in order to open up your agency. So those are some things to consider. I don't think, and you guys can let me know, I don't think we have too many NOSAs on here, and I'm going to type it, or students on here who are starting their business in, I know we have somebody in Florida, but in California or Louisiana, and we can talk offline a little bit about those steps and processes that your state may require you to do as well. So funding. So financing your business and the importance of funding is really key. So a lot of times going into business, you want to have not only your business plan, but you want to make sure that you've set aside money to actually run the business, run the agency. So there's a couple of different ways to do that. And one of the ways is the obvious. You set aside the money as an individual and you save it specifically to start the business. Another way that some people have self-funded or crowd-funded is that if you have a partner, that person may come with the money and you come with the experience. So those are definitely viable options when it comes to funding. You can also get an investor. And a lot of times these are people who do just that, invest in businesses, small businesses, big businesses. And their desire is to gain an interest in the business, either through owning a percentage of the business, 1 to 5 to 25% of the business, or some sort of return on their invested monies. There are also options for small business loans. So this is where your banking and lending institutions will loan you the money to start or run your business. And this is a really good time to look into that. I know a lot of banks prior to COVID-19 might have been hesitant, but because so many small businesses are being hit so hard by it, a lot of businesses have become more lenient with offering money to allow small businesses to get started so that we can help boost the economy. So the Small Business Administration is a great resource to start with, as well as your small business, your local small business development center. And like I mentioned before, I'll leave the links for all these in the actual group. And then there's another thing that's becoming a little bit popular, which is called angel investors. And these are people who want to invest in businesses. Sometimes they have specific requirements for the businesses that they invest in, but most of the time they're looking to invest in businesses in specific locations. I know in Delaware, they have an angel investor program, and you just have to go through the application process. If you're approved, that person will operate as a silent partner, and over a certain period of time, those monies are typically forgiven as a forgivable loan. When it comes to thinking about how much money you need and getting started, I tell people on average, you want to have 3 months of your payroll to cover your agency. And to kind of come up with that amount, you want to kind of think about how many nurses or CNAs and nurses that you intend on staffing, as well as what is kind of the pay that you expect to give them. And that'll kind of give you an idea. You also want to consider that you'll have to pay payroll taxes and, payroll processing fees potentially. So you want to include that when you kind of come up with your amounts. What a lot of people have done, what we did when we got started was we worked the agency initially, and then that kind of gave us an idea of how much money we needed because we were able to see the bill rates and things of that nature. And I'll get more into how you set the bill rates, how you know how much is a competitive price, when to choose a contract that's a good contract versus a contract that maybe you should wait on a little bit later on in the modules as we move through. Another thing to consider when it comes to funding is when you're working with clients, you want to make sure that you're clearly outlining payment terms. So whatever the agreed amount bill rates are, you want to make sure that the client is clear as far as when those amounts are to be paid and what that process looks as far as timeliness of the payment. So you want to make sure that, once an invoice is submitted, then in 10 to 15 days or 7 to 10 days, a payment is expected, so that you make sure that you have a consistent payment for your services coming into your business. And then the other thing, on average, we've seen it takes about 60 to 90 days, and this is very client specific, to receive payment. For some of your clients who are not a part of a vendor management system, a lot of times it can be more of a 30 to 45 day turnaround on the payment, but a lot of this can vary. So that's why it's important to have the 3 months of payroll already set aside, so that if you run into a situation where it may take 60 or 75 days to receive your payment, it's not impacting your employees. So the next thing is, after making sure that you have your business plan together, you set aside or begin the process of thinking about your funding, like how you're going to fund the business, you want to look into insurance. So as healthcare staffing agency owners, you have to have some type of insurance. And I'll talk a little bit now about the different types of insurance as well as the importance of it. So the 3 main basic types of insurance requirements that clients look for is your professional and general liability, as well as your workers' compensation. And this has kind of been the case consistent across the board. And there are instances where you may not have to have the workers' comp, but you want to always make sure that you have your professional and general liability, just because you want to make sure that you're covering the business. So essentially, professional and general liability will cover anything that happens with regards to the business or services being provided by the business or employees of the business. And then, of course, the workers' comp is related to any injuries your employees have on site, and making sure that they're compensated if they're injured on the job. So workers' comp is also a little bit state specific. So not every state requires that the business have workers' comp, but typically a lot of your clients will require it. So that's why I have it listed here as the top 3 things that you'll need. Business insurance and workers' comp is just like looking for insurance for your car. That's the best way that I can compare it. And you can shop around. So there's a lot of different companies. I listed here some of the companies, and I'll link them into the group as well with everything else. So some of the companies include NSO, Liberty Mutual, BIRAC, and you can also do a Google search of business insurance companies and you'll get a list of different things. Essentially, it's a brokered insurance that you may get a few different responses from a couple of companies, but they'll shop what you're looking for around and then they'll come back with a quote. So the quote on average for your professional and general liability insurance can range from $3,000, maybe about $2,000 to $5,000 annually. Just like with car insurance, it really depends on the state. So your higher paying states where the cost of living might be a little bit higher is typically on the higher end of things, and your lower, your states where the cost of living is a little bit lower, it's a little bit cheaper. So that applies with business insurance as well. I gave a sample here of your certificate of liability insurance. So when you're working with clients and they're looking for your certificate of insurance, this is kind of what they're looking for. Traditionally, the coverage amount is 1 million, 3 million. And that's kind of listed here. I'm not sure if you guys can see it as far as the coverage. So that's the standard for the workers' comp. I've seen as low as the coverage at $500,000 up to $1 million. And some of that is specific to what your client is asking for. Okay, so Jennifer, you're in Louisiana, and then Trinice, yes, Trinice, I know you're in Florida. Okay. Okay. So that's just a touch. And like I said, this is kind of just your overview on setting up your foundation. We'll definitely go more in depth about all of the things, and you'll kind of see them reappear in different parts of the modules to come over the next 6 weeks. But I just wanted to kind of give you guys a really good overview to help you get started. So the next slides are talking about your organizational structure. And what I think of when I think of organizational structure is who's going to do what, like who's going to work within your organization and what are they going to be doing besides yourself. And to be honest, a lot of times when you're first getting started, you do a lot of things. So when we first got started, I was the recruiter, the human resources, the scheduler, employee relations, payroll, you know, all of those things at one time. But as your organization grows, it's important to have in writing a plan to kind of see what that growth will look like as a visual. So it just, like I said before, it establishes a purpose and direction for your organization, allows you to grow in the right direction, allows you to identify who will be doing what and why. It creates structure for yourself as well as your employees and helps them get an understanding of your chain of command. And in doing an organizational structure, you're not necessarily setting it in stone. It's something that you can add to, make adjustments to as your business grows. So we're just going to play around a little bit, and this is something you guys can definitely do on your free time. I like to include activities in my presentations, and create your own organizational chart. So you want to, at this point or later on, when you watch the video later, think about who's going to be doing what within your organization and what types of roles you'll need to run your business. So here's a sample organizational chart for you guys. And this was kind of how my agency's organizational structure was set up. So there was a chief executive officer, there was a business operations person, a finance person, someone who handled credentialing, recruitment, and then an assistant coordinator type. So as I mentioned before, when we first started, I was doing the first three things, which was business operations, recruitment, and credentialing. And then my partner was doing finance. And as we grew, we actually slotted people into those roles so that we can focus more on obtaining contracts for the business, as well as any additional other things that we wanted to see the organization doing. So this is definitely an organizational chart you can use for yourself. It's one you can use and include in your business plan. It's very feasible. I think on here, the only difference might be it's not a scheduler role here. So I would definitely consider adding that, just kind of glancing at it now. And whenever you get a chance, kind of sit down and think about it. And it's a great place to incorporate into your business plan or your business outline. So with those roles, you want to touch a little bit on job descriptions, like who are we doing what and why. So when you're creating not only your business plan, but when you're actually advertising for job opportunities, you want to make sure that you have an idea of what that role is going to do. So for the most part, for many of us in staffing, your roles are very repetitious. So once you create a nurse, LTAC hospital job description, that individual will definitely, and those roles and responsibilities for that job description will be the same. But I encourage you to take out the time to kind of think about those things. Like I mentioned, those are great things to add into your business plan. Here's an example of what to include or some things to think about. You want to kind of summarize the essential responsibilities, talk about some of the high-level activities the person will be doing, any qualifications, so they need any specific certifications or years of experience or working in certain types of setting. That's where you want to include those things. You want to talk about their daily tasks, any sort of education they may need. You want to include information about any sort of reporting structure. So if they need to be managed or supervised in their role, that's where you want to make sure that you touch on those things, as well as any special training. And here I included for our clinical recruiter compliance coordinator, a little bit of the task and responsibilities that they were doing in that particular role. And as I mentioned, everything on here will be saved onto the page, to the group page. So you don't have to worry about writing anything down, and we'll definitely go more in depth when we actually talk about the process of recruiting for employees. So this is my favorite topic, but before we get into that, do you guys have any questions for me? Any questions so far? I know it's a lot of information.
Hello, Shamika?
Yes.
Hey, this is Angela. I have a question. Me and my partner live in two different states. Okay. So it would probably be a question where I may need to inbox you. I'm just trying to figure out, which side should we, put everything on? Should we do the EIN in one particular state. I guess over the other states, it's just, you did say something about Louisiana, and I am Louisiana,
Okay.
Mississippi. So I was just wondering if it would be better that we did everything as far as the Secretary of State, all of that with the business name there.
Okay.
Although I'll be.
Yeah, I was going to say definitely inbox me and bring it up more directly. Just based on the two states, I would probably pick Mississippi. And then you can always, and this is the case for everybody, if you start your business in one state, you always have the option to set yourself up as a foreign entity in the other state, which is a little bit easier to do, where it's just kind of saying, I'm doing business in this state as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds great.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Okay. So if you do have any questions, feel free to drop it in the chat box. And we're going to keep moving. And like I mentioned, this is my favorite topic, just because this topic is really key in that it's not easy getting started. It's definitely not easy being out there on your own for those of us who are starting solo. So maintaining an entrepreneurial mindset is so key. And a lot of the ways that people aren't as successful with their agencies is because of this. Because we already know the need is there. There's definitely opportunity to make money. You can create your structure when you invest a little bit of time with setting up your business outline or your business plan, but your mindset can really impact how profitable as well as how long it'll kind of take you to get there. So I talk a lot about in the NOSA group, and like I mentioned at the end, I'll talk with you guys about that. Key things to transitioning from an employer to an employee to an employer. So for the most part, all of us, even myself, all started out as employees and we worked for somebody else. But there are key things to think about as you transition to employer that, one, are things that you maybe have never thought about before or even considered because you kind of been on the employee side for so long. Two, things that you have to change or adjust to so that you can make sure that you're not only that your agency launches, but that it launches as a profitable and sustainable agency. And three, that you're surrounding yourself around a group of people, a community like Nursepreneurs, as well as a staffing agency mastermind, the NOSA group, so that you can stay on track with meeting your goals and launching your agency. So one of the things that has helped me that I hope will help you guys is goal setting. So a roadmap to success to me includes a lot of goal setting. Even for me, starting this course was part of a goal. And those of you who have kind of been in the group and joined the course, or maybe have talked with me offline, kind of have been there along the journey. But in the background, this was kind of one of the goals that I had in mind. And in order to do that, you have to set up intentional goals. And one of the platforms that helps me do it that I definitely think will be beneficial to you guys is SMART goals. SMART goals have been around forever. I've heard about SMART goals from years ago when I was in college. But one of the things that SMART goals helps people who are transitioning from employee to employer do is give it that specific, measurable, achievable, realistic timeliness that you need. So you guys have made the commitment to say, hey, I want to start a healthcare staffing agency. So that might have been a thought that you had recently, or you might have had the thought a while ago, or you might be revisiting the thought. But at the point that the opportunity to join the Nursepreneurs Mastermind came about, you had to make a commitment. So now you're, moving forward with your commitment on that goal, and then you just kind of have to keep moving forward. So it has to be something that you're continually doing. So SMART goals helps me with that and really helped us with our agency to make it happen. And essentially what SMART goals are specific, So what do you want to do? They're measurable. How will you know when you've reached it? They're achievable. It's within your power to accomplish it. It's realistic. Can you realistically achieve it? And then it's timely. When exactly do you want to accomplish it? So one of the things that I do with some of the students that I work with is I set a launch goal. So it's not to say that it's a hard, fast goal, but it kind of helps people stay motivated. In life and in these times, there's so much uncertainty and different things going on. You can easily get distracted. So some of the ways that I help students with setting the launch goal is through the one-on-one sessions to kind of come up with what specific things or steps or processes that you need to do to get you to whatever you intend to set as your launch date. For instance, if you say, hey, Shamika, I want to launch the agency by October 1st, what does that look like? Have you registered with your state? Have you obtain your EIN number? Have you set up a structure for your organization? Have you looked at insurances? Do you already have insurance? So it kind of looks at what you've already done as well as what you need to do. And a lot of that will kind of be incorporated in the course as well to kind of help people do just that. Some other things that I think are important with setting SMART goals is setting yearly, monthly, and daily goals. So that if, say, your launch goal was the end of the year, that's a couple of months away. So you can kind of take the concept of a December 1st launch goal and then bring it back to what do I need to do each month, each week, each day to get me to that place. And it also gives you the ability to look back and see what you did and what you did wrong and what you did right, or even stuff that you might need assistance with. A lot of times the hurdles that people experience along their journey aren't so much tied to the goal as much as things that you have no control over. No one had any control over COVID-19. So it interrupted a lot of NOSA's ability to launch as soon as they would like to. But what I encourage them to do, and I would encourage you guys to do, is there something else you can do in the meantime that once this situation gets cleared up, you'll put yourself in a better position moving forward. So what I would like to do is encourage you guys to set at least 3 goals for this week. So since it's Thursday, let's put them for next week, but set 3 goals that you want to do, 3 SMART goals that you want to achieve by next week. I'd encourage you to share it with the group just because sharing allows you to be held accountable. But if you don't want to share it with the group, that's fine as well. So that as you're going through this course over the next 6 weeks, you're actually being able to see, okay, we started here with this. I'm ready to start my agency and I'm taking the course to put the business plan or outline together. I've actually begun the process of marketing my agency. I'm hiring employees so that you can actually see yourself making achievements and moving forward in real time. So another thing I'd like you guys to do today is set a launch goal. And essentially, I will launch my agency by like whatever date you want to choose. And when I speak with you guys on your one-on-one sessions next week, we'll kind of talk about what that looks like and the steps that you would need to take to get you to that place. Another thing with your entrepreneurial mindset is your team. So many of us realize in taking the journey and becoming an entrepreneur that everybody can't be on your team. It's a thing that people say. Some people say it and don't believe it. And then some people say it and then realize it's true. But either way, you want to create a winning team. And what that looks like to me is individuals who are of like mind. So this particular mastermind at this point is about 10 or 12 people who I'm going to say we're all like-minded. And this is a great place to start when you think about your team, your support system, when you think about if you're going to partner with other individuals, what that looks like, so that you're able to make sure that what you're doing and the people around you are in alignment with what you want for your future. So you're just essentially creating the framework for the future, no different than if you did a vision board, which I think is a great way to do a lot of that if that's something that you're into, or if you're really into goal setting or writing down things or journaling. You want to really make it something that's feasible and something that's attainable, as well as have the people that are around you or that you're talking to kind of in alignment with that as well. So when I think about my team, and when I talk about team in the early stages, I'm talking about the people who are helping you do like the business operations. So a big part of this particular module is really touching on the operations of the business. Like, how do we get the business started? This is way before we're adding employees or recruiting or running a payroll. Who are those people? And they can be people that you've either outsourced things to, which a lot of people outsource their accounting and payroll. They can be people that are working with you in your office. They can be the assistant or the scheduler or both, or a recruiter or a partner. It's key that those people are in line with the mission and values for your organization, as well as themselves add a level of expertise, value, and enthusiasm to the organization. Because there's going to be many times in getting started, whether it's a healthcare staffing agency or any other type of business, where things aren't going to look great. Things aren't going to look great. They're not going to feel great, but you want to be around people who can kind of bring it back in or hone it in to kind of like, hey, we started here. Let's finish strong. Let's continue. Let's make these adjustments so that, you know, in the end, it becomes mutually beneficial to all the parties that are involved. Some other things, as I mentioned before, and I think Angela touched on, she's working with a partner. Having partners is great, but that's not always an option for everybody. I had a partner, and a lot of people do it, but if you're in a position where you don't have the option or have chosen not to do it with a partner, you want to consider other resources and mentors and information in your community that might help and support you along the way. As I mentioned before, the Small Business Administration is a great resource. Your Small Business Development Center has a lot of great resources. And one of the resources that I personally enjoy the most is SCORE. So SCORE, I'm going to put it here in the chat box. SCORE.com is a organization that offers a lot of free services to people they offer trainings, they offer how to put your business plan together, they talk about registering with the state. So those are great resources to kind of help you move along in the process that are always offered free. So your local SCORE, most of them are in your major cities in your state, but they may also be a little ways depending on how big your state is. They allow you to attend webinars. Typically they have some sort of free webinars available that talks about business and marketing. It may talk about if you wanted to maybe do like a marketing campaign. A lot of times they'll have a session on those things. So I encourage you guys to join your local SCORE. And as you're growing your team, so for the most part, once you kind of set everything up for the business internally to get going, you typically have to add an individual. It may not be someone that's working in-house with you. It could be like an accountant or a recruiter type. Those are typically some of the things that people outsource. But in choosing those people, you want to pick people who add value. You want to pick people who are experts in their area. And it doesn't have to be someone who's necessarily done it for years and years and years, as much as they have a level of expertise. So a recruiter, a great quality in a good recruiter to me is somebody who's very organized and very technically savvy. They may not have been a recruiter for a long time, but if they have those skill sets, they're definitely a great addition and can be trained and learn some of the other things that are specific to running your organizations. As well, you want to be open to referrals. So if you're looking for an accountant, or if you're looking for a recruiter or a scheduler, let people in your business communities know that you're looking for those individuals, myself included. You can let me know, and we may be able to refer you to individuals who might be helping or be able to help you with that. One of the things that I've found for some of the NOSAs that has been helpful is virtual assistants. Virtual assistants will allow you to be able to just be more organized if that's not your thing, or create more structure, or create, automate systems and things of that nature that maybe you've done manually or you're still kind of learning how to do. As well, you want to attend networking events, marketing events. So I know under these times and situations, it's extremely challenging to be able to do these things in person, but a lot of your organizations have moved these things to online. So it's no different than having what we're doing here is a Zoom meeting. I've used Zoom more than I've ever used Zoom before, ever. This year, I do Zoom meetings probably 2 to 3 times a week on different topics. So that's definitely something that I would encourage you to still do. Just kind of, if you're not familiar with Zoom or you need a tutorial, Zoom has some great videos out there, or there's a lot of other platforms that are similar to Zoom. Ask for help. You can definitely ask me if you have questions about Zoom and some of the other WebEx and platforms that are out there. And I would have no problem with helping you and walking you through. As well as when you're bringing on people to your organization, you want to set clear expectations and goals for them as being a part of your team. And that's really key in the transition of going from employee to employer, is to change your mindset in a way that they're representatives of my organization. So the expectations you have of an individual that's working alongside you might be a little bit different than the expectations that you have of an individual representing your organization. So you just want to make sure that you've taken out the time to not only know what those expectations are, as well as make sure that you've effectively communicated it to them. So if you have a recruiter, hey, I expect you to make 100 phone calls a day. You want to make sure that you're very clear, because no less than 50 phone calls really won't get you the type of traffic that you want for your organization. And then finally, your squad, as I call it, or your team, is key to your success. So a lot of things that I tell people when it comes to the mindset is that it is a transition. Many times as startup staffing agencies, we still have to work for employers. There's a 6-month, 9-month period where you're kind of transitioning, and you're doing something like what you guys are doing today. You're taking a course to get everything in line so that you can, by December 1st, launch and kind of transition out of being an employee and becoming an employer. So having the right people around you and supporting you is really important to make sure that when you're ready to do those things, it happens as seamless as possible. And then this kind of wraps up what we talked about tonight as far as like business operations. So when I talk about building your foundation, I'm really talking about that internal structure. So that internal structure to me is the people on the inside of the agency, the CEOs, the finance, the recruiters, the credentialing people, the scheduler or support person that kind of keeps the machine going, and making sure that you have not only the right people in place, but even if right now you're doing all those roles or you intend to do all those roles, you actually have a plan for who and where and what needs to happen as you grow to put people in place of those roles. So as you grow, maybe you start out doing it yourself for 3 months, But as time goes on, maybe at month 6, you decide, hey, the first role that I want to add an individual to into my organization is a recruiter. So at that point, you want to make sure that, hey, I have in mind what I want that person to do. You have a job description for them. You kind of set expectations as far as what specifically you want them to be doing and how they're going to kind of help you move towards whatever your goal is for that month or year, or for your business to continue to grow. Having that structure in place, like I mentioned, with your roles and responsibilities is key, because it creates not only organization, but it allows and limits the level of overlapping that you're doing. So as a small business owner, you want to really limit overlapping, just because your time is tight. Your time is very limited. So you don't want to have a recruiter doing credentialing and then hire a credentialing coordinator to do it as well. You want to kind of have clear, concise roles and responsibilities in the organization, and have communicated those duties to those individuals. And then for those of you, which sometimes is many of us, who actually have to kind of take those roles on initially and then hand them off later, making sure that you're actually doing just that, that you're, hey, if you have a recruiter recruiting, let them recruit, and then you can focus on obtaining contracts and growing your business. And then finally, your goal setting. It's a daily part of my activities. For some people, there's all types of apps. One of the apps that comes to mind to me that a lot of people use for like goal setting types of things is Monday. So it's an app called Monday. And I'm a writer, so I'm a sticky note queen, and I write everything down and I write everywhere. So that's kind of what keeps me on track. Some people write it in their iPhones and they write it under notes. That's how they keep it. No matter where or how you kind of structure setting your SMART goals, is up to you and what works best for you. But I would just make sure that you're actually doing it. Is the most important thing, is that you're doing it on a regular basis. And, those smaller goals are a part of a bigger goal, which for you guys would be your launch goal. And as I mentioned before, I'd love for you guys to set your launch goal today. You can feel free to share it in the chat box if you want to, but if not, go ahead and share it in the group later on. But some things I want you to work on over the weekend is start thinking about setting your goals for your business. And some of those goals would be, hey, let me finish my business outline, or let me register with the state. They don't have to be grandiose goals at this stage, because we're very early on in the process. Or it could be, let me create my organizational chart, or let me do a job description for these different roles and responsibilities. So these are just some ideas for you guys to do. I put it up as a homework assignment, but it's not a real homework assignment, but it's just something to kind of get you guys moving in the right direction for week 1. As I mentioned early on in the meeting, the way that we're going to be setting up this particular mastermind is all the sessions initially will be live. So tomorrow, this session that we did tonight will be posted onto the group, so you can review the actual live Zoom again if you need to, as well as the PowerPoint presentations will be there as well, so you can look over that. I'll also be dropping a bonus video that I did with another group earlier on in the year on setting up your business foundations. And I encourage you guys, if you want to rewatch the video, or if you decide to look at the presentation again, to definitely drop your questions in the Q&A. So in the group, in the network, there's a Q&A section, and under that section is a topic. So for every week, we'll have business foundations or organizational structure or marketing. Drop your questions there. So I'll be on there every day answering any questions. I'll be reaching out and posting tomorrow the openings for the one-to-one appointments with you guys. I understand we're still working. A lot of us are still making the transition. So if you can't catch the live sessions, it's okay. You can always catch it in the replay. All of the PowerPoints will be posted onto the group on Mondays. So on Mondays, the PowerPoint presentations will go up, and then on Thursdays, we'll do the Zooms. If you want more information about different topics, or if you want me to do another Zoom or go more into depth on anything, just drop it in the Q&A and I'll kind of figure out what we can do. Since this is the first session, I really want it to be as engaging and informational as possible so that you guys get what you need so that you can launch your agency in the timeline that we establish, that works and makes sense, and that you have all the tools and resources to be successful. So as always, you guys have decided to start your new journey today. I'm excited. We're excited here at the NOSA Group to come along with you on it. You know, if you have any questions, like I said before, drop them in the Q&A box, or you can reach out to me directly. The group has messaging features, so you can send me a message there. I'll drop my contact information into the group tomorrow when I do all the other posts, so you can reach out to me directly. I'm always available. So as always, thank you guys for being a part of the Zoom meeting. So that completes my presentation. So I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to ask any questions you might have about the presentation thus far. So do you guys have any questions for me?
That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, so if you guys don't have any questions, or if you have questions later, like I mentioned, you can drop them in the Q&A section and I'll go over them again. Otherwise, look out on Monday for the presentation for next week, along with the one-to-one sessions. Okay, so I do have a question there. Is there support for business planning? Yes. So Katie will be posting on Monday some information with regards to business planning, as well as I will be posting a business outline. So when we do the one-to-one session, we can talk a little bit more about kind of where you are in the business planning process and figure out something for you. But there's a lot of tools and resources that I'll share to help you guys with doing a business plan or a business outline. Any other questions? And as I mentioned, I don't think I mentioned everybody was on the call. For you guys who have also, so there's kind of a two-parter to the course. So there's my piece where I kind of help you set up the operations and go in with the operations. But the other piece is what Katie and her team is doing, which is helping you set up your brand, doing your brand management, your website. So I definitely encourage you guys to go ahead and start reaching out to her and her team. They've set up some information on the page where you're able to go in and look at different templates and reach out and set appointments so that you can get your business website and logos and all that set up as well. So definitely work towards doing that as well if you have some free time over the weekend, but definitely add that onto one of your goals for next week. So other than that, it's been great hanging out with you guys. Thank you guys for joining. Thank you guys for being a part of the first mastermind for your healthcare staffing agency. And I hope you guys have a wonderful night. And I'll see you guys next week.